We're here today with Dmitry Nemov. My name's Mark Franks, your host. We're going to go over the API enhancements and limitations in Acumatica 2019 R1. Dmitry, why don't you go ahead?
Okay, thanks, Mark. Hello, everyone. So today I will describe new changes in Acumatica 2019 R1 and also changes in our API limits in Acumatica 2019 R1, and I will touch on our future plans. Okay, so let me go ahead and start. Starting from Acumatica 2019 R1, in default endpoint version 18.2, we have introduced following changes. So first of all, we have improved insertion of shipments. So as you know, you can insert shipments using following approach. You can create shipment and then add shipment details to it with order type, order number, and order line number inside each shipment detail. And when you put that shipment, all the lines that you reference will be inserted. That approach allows you to enter shipment with lines from different sales orders and also enter partial shipments, etc. However, this approach has one significant issue, and the issue is performance. So to improve that, we have introduced a new way of inserting shipments in Acumatica 2019 R1. So the way is to insert only one shipment detail instead of inserting multiple ones. And in this single shipment detail, you define order type and order number of the sales order you want to add to the shipment. And after that, you put the shipment using APIs. And in that case, the entire order that you reference here will be inserted into that shipment. So all the lines from sales order will be transferred to the shipment. And actually it works much faster than previous approach, so it works several times faster. The only issue with that approach is that you cannot use it with the same flexibility, so you cannot insert you cannot ship sales orders partially, but you can also insert multiple lines with different references to different sales orders, and all these sales orders will be added to that shipments. And as I said, it works like 2 times or maybe even 5 times faster than previous approach. So another thing that we have improved is insertion of sales orders. So here, what we did, we now allow you to insert sales order with payments. So as you see, for instance, in this example, I insert a sales order with some details and with payments. And actually, in that case, all the payments will be inserted in the same API call which you use to insert sales order. So in this example, you will get 4 different payments in the sales order with different payment methods, doc types, and cash accounts. So I have an example here, and let me show it to you. So in this example, I have only 2 payments, but I also define payment amount and apply it to order amount here. So when I send it to the Acumatica, I will get sales order like that. Okay, sales order. So as you see, the sales order has 1 line, but it has 2 payments. And these payments are not applied in full. They still have some balance on them. So this approach allows you to insert payments in the same call that you use to insert sales orders. And it allows you to reduce number of API calls that you use to implement some scenarios. Like for instance, regular e-commerce scenario when you put sales order and also you want to put payments to it. Okay, so and the third improvement is improved insertion of AP bills. So as for AP bills, as you can see, via user interface, you can add, let me create a new one. So using user interface, you can create AP bill with lines from pure receipt or with entire pure receipt. And you can also do it with purchase order. So you can add purchase order line, or you can add all the lines from some purchase order. And actually, you can do it via API right now. So to do it via API, you follow the same approach that I showed you with shipment. So if you want to add lines to AP bill from entire pure receipt, you define a single line with pure receipt number in your API request, and all the lines from pure receipt will be inserted into that AP bill. Same goes for purchase order. If you want to insert entire purchase order into AP bill, you define one line with purchase order type and purchase order number, and that line will insert all the lines from purchase order into AP bill. But if you want more flexibility, and if you want to decide which lines you want to include and which you do not want to, you can use old approach. You can add pure receipt line by sending line with pure receipt number and pure receipt line number, and if you want to include some lines from purchase order, you send the request with purchase order type, purchase order number, and also purchase order line number. So these improvements allow you to reduce number of API calls that you need to execute to insert documents in Acumatica. And as I said, it is available in Acumatica 2019 R1 in default endpoint version 18.2. Okay, the next topic is changes in the way we count our count API requests and the way we restrict them. So first of all, let me show you our API restrictions. So if you go to portal.acumatica.com and look for pricing frequently asked questions there, you'll find that picture. So as you see here, we have different web service API restrictions for different licenses. So for instance, for smaller license, we have 50 API requests per minute, and also 3 concurrent web service requests and 10 concurrent web service API users. So let me explain a bit these values. So web service requests per minute is a number of requests that you can execute against some Acumatica instance until you reach that limitation. In Acumatica 2018 R2, when you reach it, you will get a HTTP error instead of response. So as for concurrent web services requests, these are for simultaneous execution of API requests. So if you, for instance, if several different external systems send requests in the same time to Acumatica, it can work with only 3 of them. If you have, for instance, 4 external systems that accidentally sent all their requests at the same time, Acumatica will throw an error for one of them. And as for web service API users, you can have only 10 logged in API users in the system. So that is why we suggest everyone to log out when they completed their work. So eventually a session will be timed out, I believe in 20 minutes if you do not send any responses, any API requests, but still in that 20 minutes this number of web service API users will be affected by logged in user. So we suggest everyone to log out every time they completed their work with APIs. So, and as I said, these restrictions will follow to, will cause errors in Acumatica 2019 R2. So in Acumatica 2019 R1, we have reworked this, and now system will not throw an error, but instead it will throttle these API requests. So for instance, for concurrent web service requests, it will not throw an error. For the fourth system, it will just queue that API request and it will process it later. So for web service requests per minute, the behavior is the same. Acumatica will queue these requests and it will process them with some delay. So, and delay is dynamic. It is counted by, you can calculate it using a formula. So let me demonstrate it. Okay, you can find this formula in the release notes. So here in the release notes for developer, you can find section related to changes in the license API limits, and you'll see the formula here. So the delay depends on time left in the current minute and number of API requests left. So delays will look like that. So these are not named correctly graphs. I have one that is named correctly. Give me 1 second. Yeah, here. So depending on time left in the current second and number of API requests you want to send, delay will be different. So if you want to send 200 requests, for instance, and the time left in current second is 60 seconds, that means that you haven't even started this minute, but you already have 200 requests. The biggest delay will be 16 seconds. But for instance, if you have 50 requests, delay will be around 0. So, and this graph is for smaller license. So eventually for bigger licenses, these numbers will be different. Okay. So, and another important thing that I want to show you is the screen in Acumatica, as it is called License Monitoring Console. And in the screen, you can observe all your license restrictions here in the system constraints. And you can also look at statistics that you have. So here, for instance, in this month, I have some data. So you can look at the data almost in real time here and decide if you need a bigger license or maybe if you don't need that big license. Okay, so let's touch on our future plans. In Acumatica 2019 R2, we are going to introduce new default endpoint that will be called 19.2. It will include several improvements. It will include more fields that current one has, and it will also include new system contract. And this new system contract will allow you to execute more great things in Acumatica. So for instance, we will change our optimization approach. So right now we are aware of the problem when that optimization throws an error when it can't optimize something. So we are working on improving that mechanism, and it will probably work better and will not throw that much errors. And as for 6.1 endpoint that is in Acumatica right now, we will deprecate it and we will not support it starting from 2019 R2. So, and if you have any requests, you can go to feedback.acumatica.com and you can enter your wishes there, and we will read them carefully and take into consideration. Okay, so that was all from my side. Let's get to questions.
All right. So if you haven't entered a question and you have something on your mind, please ask. If you go to the bottom of the screen under QA, you'll be able to ask your question. All right, first question, Kiem Vo asked, is there any way to define REST endpoints without specifying screen ID? Otherwise, we may have plenty of screens defined without user interaction. There you go, Dimitri.
Well, I don't really get the question, but let me describe. So first of all, if you have some screens that are not available in UI, you can do following thing. You can go to sitemap and you can add these screens in the hidden section of sitemap. So here. So you can add these screens that you don't want to expose via UI, but still want to have in endpoint. And after that, you go to endpoint. So create new one and add these screens to your endpoint. So I hope this answers your question.
Yeah. If it doesn't answer your question specifically, Kiem, just rephrase your question. The next question is from Jerry Kurtz. He asks, will the SO insertion source code be made available?
Actually, we will have these examples in our help. So yeah, it will be there.
Okay, thank you. The next question again is Kim Vo asked, how do we discover what the REST API endpoints available for a specific screen? For example, how many REST API endpoints available in user screen SM 201010?
Well, basically there is no way to do it, and I can't figure out why you need this.
Okay. Kim follows up with another question. He asks, can REST API throw meaningful error as same as UI? We often got a 500 internal server error and we don't know the detail of the error. It becomes very hard to trace.
Yeah, we are aware of that problem, and we will try to solve it in our upcoming release. So in 19R2, we are working on that, but I can't guarantee anything right now, but we are working on that.
Okay, we're down to our last question. So if you have any questions, you need to ask them right now because we should be ending shortly. Gregory Archambault asks, can invoices be imported with multiple payments similar to the way sales order was demonstrated?
No, there is no way to do that right now. So if you really want that, please go to feedback.acumatica.com and enter that idea there.
Okay, great. And Kim Vo asks, let's say I create a new table ABC in Acumatica. How can I define CRUD endpoints for the new table without creating a new screen?
But basically you can't do that. So you can define read operations, but you cannot define update and delete operations.
Okay, and Robert Waite asks, is it possible to get the trace messages with the API itself?
No, it is not possible.
Okay. And looks like our last question is Vasanath Vasantha Ambat asks, is there a plan to have the help screen to describe API endpoints?
So again, not really get the question, but let me answer it. So first of all, if you want to get help related to this, to the way how that screen works, you can click that little button here, and you'll see all the related articles here. So you can explore different articles here that describes how to use that screen and how to define new endpoints, etc. So another thing that we have is that integration development guide that you can find on help.acumatica.com. So integration development guide, and here you will be able to find all the articles related to our REST API and SOAP API. So here you can find all the references and also some examples. And if you are talking about endpoint definition itself, so you can basically review this endpoint definition in that screen. So screen is called Web Service Endpoints, and you can review this VSDL schema of that endpoint, and you can also review OpenAPI 2.0 schema of this endpoint. So as for VSDL schema, you can use it in your C# projects, for instance, if you add web reference to that schema. So if you want to use REST API, and if you want to use that definition, OpenAPI, you can go to a site called editor.swagger.io. You paste this definition to the window, and after that you will be able to download classes generated based on that definition for almost all the programming languages that are common now. So for instance, you'll be able to download it for C#, for Python, and for many others. So the only issue with that is that it takes some time to load because our endpoint is pretty big right now. So the site is freezing for several seconds or maybe minutes, and after that you will be able to download C# classes definition or Python classes definition or whatever you want. I believe PHP is also there, JavaScript, and well, everything else. I believe it answers your question. I hope so.
Thank you, Dimitri. We're at the end of the questions, so just like to ask a couple things. One, if you have any feedback, you'd like to see something added, feature added to the product, or you have concerns or there's issues that you find, you can provide the feedback at feedback.acumatica.com, as Dimitri's mentioned a few times in his presentation. And then the other ask I have of you is, if you have any questions that weren't answered here today, or just in general, you can go to the Stack Overflow section where we have our own forum there, which you can find at https://stackoverflow.com, questions tagged Acumatica, and you can ask your questions there. And while you're there, I would ask, being a part of a greater developer community at Acumatica, that If you notice any questions as you're perusing that you know the answer to, we'd really appreciate it if you contribute to the community by answering any questions where you have expertise. We would really appreciate it. This is really a community-driven forum. We do have support people that answer some of the questions here, but many of the questions get answered directly by you Acumatica partner developers out there, and we really appreciate people spending their time helping the community and answering questions. So I would just ask if you would just come up here when you have your own questions, and if you can help answer any of the outstanding questions, we'd really appreciate it. So with that, I bid you goodbye. You have a nice start to your week. Again, we apologize for the technical issue at the beginning, but again, this is being recorded, so you'll be able to go ahead and pass this on to colleagues or rewatch it yourself. Have a great day. Bye-bye.